Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about AutoKept and how we're thinking about repositioning it in the marketplace, and then the next evolution, the migration of talk for those clients that are inappropriate for something as simple as AutoKept. Now, I was out the last 2 weeks visiting accounting firms around California, and I had about maybe 30 firms in the room, 40 possibly, just bounced around, did little seminars, and half of those people indicated they wanted to use talk. In some towns it was a third, but in most towns about one half the people said, God, this is amazing. We want to do this. So we haven't taken those orders because we have not figured out how to fulfill new customers and training them on the migration and moving up. But that's our very next step. But the question I got is, what about the guy that's real small? And we got and the people that were in the room must have had a lot of these people, but they kept talking about independent contractors. And so I did a little research, and there are about 21 million hairdressers, handymen, landscapers, people that are just one man operations. And so I'm looking at this, wondering is this a big feeder group that we could bring into our fold and make a little money off them, but possibly start looking for the ones that are going to migrate into good clients. And do that though without any additional heavy lifting on your part. That was the real important part. I don't want any heavy lifting for the accountant in hours spent or time, etc., because these people are just too small. So let's talk about this independent contractor though, and we'll take my daughter as an example. She's she's an esthetician. That means someone that does that laser hair removal and stuff, and she grosses about 60,000 a year. And she came to me last week or week before. She wanted to set up QuickBooks. She wanted to start a corporation. And I'm looking at it, what a lot of work. Why would you want to go to all that for 60,000 a year? What you really need to use is a pegboard. But I found out that pegboards don't exist anymore. So I'm wondering, is she a prospect for a tax return? Is she a prospect that we'd want to have in our funnel? And so what I'm going to give to you today is a little bit of, I'm going to ask you some questions. Now, if that person, that one of those 21 million people came into your office and in their AutoKept back end, they had all their mileage records done, all their income was recorded. When they went to the bank, they made a deposit. Her daily deposits might be $300. So she just took a picture of the deposit slip and said money in. If her expenses were recorded, and then of course any tax documentation like 1099s or charitable contributions were in a different report. If she had all that on an electronic file box that you could go look at, would that be an easy return to do? And do you want that return? I mean, you're not going to get more than $250 for it. Sometimes you'll get $400 or $500 if they've got rental property, but it's not going to be a big return. What we're really wondering is if we got those people in, would they migrate to our high-end full-service accounting? So my question today is, we're thinking about repositioning AutoKept in the marketplace so that it makes a little bit more sense to the end user, and so that we're out of the picture of competition. And it actually occurred to me that we could actually do basic bookkeeping for my daughter for about $20 a year. And I know that's not much, but that would be a price that would have absolutely zero resistance. And now, as soon as I sent that moment out, Richard Robinson sends me an email and says, "Are you kidding? That's $1.67 a month. The perceived value will be so low, nobody will buy it." Well, that's a good point, and it's definitely a question. Should we do bookkeeping for $97 a year? Now remember, this is really going to be really basic spreadsheet bookkeeping. This is not a balance sheet. It's not accrual accounting. It's not amortization schedules are not worked in. All we're doing is recording money in and money out on a flat, simple spreadsheet. And it's based for the person that's got boxes of receipts or they're up all night. It's simply the lowest cost bookkeeping ever invented specifically for that little personal service provider or rental property owners, small 1 and 2 business people, owners, contractors. And of course, all they need to do using AutoKept is take a picture of their transaction and talk about it, and it codes the transaction with all the documentation and goes right into this spreadsheet. I mean, these little guys may never have to touch paper again. And there's 21 million of them. So I'm just wondering if we could develop some simple ways to tell them how to do money in, money out, track their mileage, and do their tax documentation. Would they have an interest in this? And is $20 the price that'll get 100 people using it in your firm or 500 people using it? We will need to, we plan on selling this direct if we do this, but we're going to automatically code the private labeling to people you don't know. And so that we don't know if that'll work for you, if you'll get clients or not. But we don't want it to be coded to AutoKept, because if somebody calls and says, should I buy a truck or lease it, we don't want that phone call. We want that to go to you. So we created I built a website with this idea in mind. And it's kind of a change of the website that we already have. Now this is not up. This is hidden because we're not actually doing this right now. I'm simply wondering if this might be a great way to sweep the nation and capture a lot of attention. Now, if we go with Richard Robinson's idea of $97 a year or even more, it may have a higher perceived value. The truth is, we don't know. I will tell you this. There is an attitude that everything should be free out there on the internet now. And when I was talking to accounting firms over the last couple of days, I told them that talk is 10 cents a transaction. You're going to be able to do 200 to 300 transactions an hour. And they all said, that's great. It's free, right? I ran into some price resistance going into them and telling them I need at least 3,900 transactions a month so I can support the back end of this and have my staff available so that when the product doesn't link to a program or you don't know how to get a new client set up because they've got some weird program or software, what do? Well, I've got to cover those costs. So anyway, that whole conversation, that whole paragraph was just about there's a real perception that things should be extremely inexpensive if we're putting them into technology, especially on a phone app. So this is the world's lowest priced bookkeeping. You can see there's a little asterisk up here next to the $20. I'm going to tell you what that means in just a second. But what I did is I went in and I told them on this website that we're accountants and tax preparers who built AutoKept for the small business that doesn't want to learn QuickBooks. And they don't want to hire somebody to do their monthly books. Now remember, this is not something you're going to take to your clients. This is something that's going to bring a lot of new people under your fold, and everything will be done. All their recording, all their transactions are already there in what really amounts to a giant tax organizer. But there are 21 million of these people, and you already know how AutoKept works. So I give these potential small business owners a short video clip, and then if they want to see more detail, they can drill down and look at video clips on how we handle money in or money out or mileage, that sort of thing. But simplicity, and this is really important, simplicity is our main goal. This is what we really wanted to do, is what's the simplest thing on the planet we can come up with. And we know that Intuit's come up with Quick Start because they saw the same market, but it's still complicated because you have to understand where to put the information on the form. Here, all they're doing is clicking money in, money out, mileage or tax documents, and then talking after they take a picture. So we're far, far simpler. And of course, no longer a free trial. We're going to actually charge right up front. And here's the reason for the asterisk. There is a limitation. The basic fee of $20 covers 400 transactions a year. If you go over that, it's $20 for another 400 transactions, or about a nickel a transaction. So that's the direction, or the big picture. And then what the small little video clips include are talking about how we handle money in. If you go to the bank, simply take a picture of your deposit slip, or if you want more detail, lay your handwritten order down, because a lot of these people are using handwritten orders or orders typed in Word. And so lay the order form and the check down, and it'll go right into your back end, filtering down to your spreadsheet. If the client's using that Square thing, or they're selling online, all they have to do is look at their monthly reports, take a picture of the monthly report on the screen, talk about it, and upload it as money in, and it'll go right into the back end cash flow spreadsheet. This is not good accounting. This is cheap accounting. And then on the money out video, we simply talked about take a picture when you go to lunch, or take a picture if you write a check, if you spend cash or use the credit card, because all that process continues to happen. And then it expenses out into the 12 most common categories. And the guys have just told me over at the programming office that we could actually customize these. Let the client customize it themselves, so that they don't have automotive expense, but they want to do some other category. They could remove automotive and put in something else. I'm thinking I'm going to leave it locked at 12 categories because I don't want the client getting too crazy here. Because if they need some filters, they can just use specific words like Unit A or Unit B. And let me see, I did get a question here. I get asked 50 times a tax season, I'm starting a little business, how do I keep records? This would be perfect, but definitely charge more, maybe $100 or $200. Well, maybe, Michael, that might be the right answer, the $100 or $200. But I don't want any price resistance. My real goal is to get the clients under your umbrella, so that we're getting the tax return, and so that we have the I don't know, maybe $100 is the right number, and we could even play with this and see which category works out the best. One of my favorite things to tell people is if you're looking at your credit card statement and you can't remember something on a credit card or debit card, you just type in the amount, and the transaction that you recorded contemporaneously pops up, so you know exactly what you spent money on. And this is a big advantage to this group of people. Could it be a marketing giveaway? I don't want to give it away for free. We're not getting the traction on AutoKept that we should, because when you give stuff away for free, people don't use it, and we're not getting enough transactions uploaded. That's nice, it's on my phone, but if they pay for it, then they're annoyed that they don't use it. So I'm kind of getting away from that. One of the things that can happen, though, just so you know, is if you do have somebody that owns, let's say, 4 or 5 or 10 rental properties, they can actually sort on that cash flow statement. They can sort the revenue and expenses allocated to each unit, or just saying the address. It's 218 West 3rd, Unit A. This was 335 Jefferson Street. And if they use that voice when they're recording an expense, then they can filter in this back end to just show me the P&L for Jefferson Street. What a simple, easy way, if you just have a couple of rental properties, to track your cash flow. Of course, that's not going to be a tax return. That's going to be just a way to get that organizer filled out. So it's the fastest, easiest bookkeeping. That's what I'm thinking we could position this as. And I think if we were cheap, we could actually get some ink, meaning we could get people like the New York Times or Inc. magazine or some of these high-tech magazines or business startup magazines to write about us. And then, of course, the mileage. You already know how the mileage works and how good that is to be able to have a recorded mileage in place. And on tax documents, right now it's set up so that if they have to use the word tax, so if they get a 1099 in the mail or a medical deduction, that's not part of their business expense, but they want to record those. So to make sure they should, if they should itemize or not. Same way with charitable contributions. All they need to do is say the word tax, and it'll move those documents that they're recording. It'll code those so that you can filter. Now, if we get enough people using that, then we'll actually change the front end of the phone. So as money in, money out mileage, tax documentation. So they'll have 4 buttons to push on the phone. But I really am wondering if this would not bring us a lot of new people into the mix. And I want to make it easy enough and cheap enough that we get a big interest from the marketplace. Out of those 21 million independent contractors, we know that 5 to 10% are what's called early adopters, and that means people that jump all over technology as soon as they see it, and which means there could be 1 or 2 million people that would jump on the simplest bookkeeping program on the planet. And it's not a software. I mean, it's a service. We're actually giving them the reports. So they'll be able to see where they stand on a cash basis. Now, it's not going to work if it's somebody that's got inventory they want to track, or work in progress billing, or they're running on an accrual basis. They've got a lot of assets that have to be amortized. If they have payroll, they might have one person on payroll and just run a separate payroll service, making the journal entries over the phone in money out over the course of the month. But if they start, you get somebody with 5 employees and $500,000 in revenue, this is inappropriate. Then they should be on Talk and QuickBooks Online or some other software. But for today, my question was, what do you think about this? And if you want to send me an email and let me know what you think. I mean, you might think this is crazy. We're going to corrupt our position in the marketplace. There's my email address. So I'm just wondering. We don't have 1 million users, and AutoKept needs 1 million users, and maybe offering the lowest priced bookkeeping service on the planet, it just might do it. And if we go to $100 though, something else you might, a lot of our other competitors are $10 a month. And so will the client be able to discern the difference between buying Cash or the basic zero plan for $10 a month, and differentiate that between what we offer and what they're giving them? I mean, they're giving them software. We're actually coding transactions and putting it into a cash flow spreadsheet. So that's a consideration on pricing. I'd much rather get 100, but I just am not sure. So anyway, if you have opinions of this, make sure you give me a call. Now, let's talk about what else is going on. If you've not been to one of our seminars, we just swung through California. We are going back. We'll be back there probably sometime in the next 2 months or 3, introducing Talk. I'm off for the next 2 weeks while I talk to all the people that signed up in the month of May. But then we'll really ramp this up and start moving forward. And I got to tell you, we have a massive technology leap where when somebody uses a debit card or a credit card, that transaction will actually be coded in QuickBooks within an hour. And that massive jump in technology is coming out sometime in the next couple of weeks. So right now we can have a high school girl or equivalent doing 200 to 300 transactions an hour. You're paperless, the client's paperless, and the workflow is totally managed. Anything the high school girl can't do automatically bumps up to the bookkeeper. So she's handling exceptions only and never doing rote repetitious work. Lynn's been using it, and she told me that a basic write-up, if you have a basic write-up client, you're charging them 300, 400, 500 a month, you're going to be able to do all the data entry on that client for about $5 in labor. Not the reconciliations or things like that, but all the data entry for about $5 a month now using Talk. So make sure that you sign up for our upcoming seminar about this. I know that most of you that I'm looking at up here on the attendee have already signed up. If we're not in a town close to you, simply send me an email, because we're going to try to get everywhere 2 times before Christmas. And the response for Talk has been at first confusing. When I first started talking to them, they were looking at me like, what? But after a week of really getting into it, there was a lot more understanding of the process and how quick we'll be able to get work done from now on. That a four-person firm has an overhead allocation of about $300,000 a year, not including your pay. If you've got 4 employees, you're spending about $300,000 a year for them to be in the back office. We can easily cut that to $150,000 and do the same amount of work. So Talk is really going to be a big push on your productivity. Okay, that's everything I wanted to talk about today. If you want to ask me about Talk or getting to our next class, if you have a opinion about pricing, send me a note. We might do both pricings. We might run it at 20 and run it at 97 and see what happens. If we get the same number of closes, of course, we're going to go to the higher price. If we get 10 times more business at $20, we're going to go low. And you don't care because you're not involved in this. The client's on your back end, but you're not doing any work for them at all. And if they do call you, it's a billable event. So there's nothing free here, and there's no labor on your part. What we're simply doing is using a low-priced bookkeeping for 21 million people to get them into your fold so that we can go back and upgrade them or do tax returns for them. Okay, that's all I wanted to talk about today. Appreciate you being in. Send me an email and let me know what you think. Thank you, everybody. Bye now.